This video is supposed to help you for the problems 19 through 22. Okay, for these problems, you're given two functions, and you're told in both cases whether it's less than 0 or greater than 0. The chart that is really going to help you with these problems is the chart that I have for you on your note sheet. Okay, this chart tells you when sine, cosine, and tangent are positive or negative and in which quadrants. So if you look at the first quadrant up here, you notice that all three are positive: sine, cosine, and tangent. Okay, if you look at the second quadrant, you notice that sine is positive, but cosine is negative, and tangent is negative. In the third quadrant, sine is negative, cosine is negative, but tangent is positive. And in the fourth quadrant, we have sine is negative, tangent is negative, but cosine is positive. Okay, and let's just analyze sine and see why we have these different functions in the different spots that they are, and why they're positive, why they're negative. What is sine? Sine is y over r. Okay, the r is always going to be positive. Okay, the radius of a circle will always be positive. So if the y is positive, okay, if we're greater than the origin in this direction, the y will be positive, which that's why in quadrant 1 sine is positive, because my y value is positive in quadrant 1. That's why it's also positive in quadrant 2, because again my y value will be positive. Okay, but if we get to these two quadrants down below, okay, y is now negative down here, and we can see that, well, sine is negative down here. Same thing over in this quadrant, y is negative, so my sine is negative. Okay, and we can do the same thing for all these functions. Okay, tangent and cosine. So if cosine is positive, that means the x is positive. That means I have to be up here or over here. In both of these, the x will be positive. Over here, x is negative. So for quadrants 2 and 3, cosine will be negative. So how can that help us with problems 19 to 22? So let's come up with a sample problem. Let's say that tangent of theta, and I'm writing on the iPad, so it's please bear with me, is let's say it's greater than 0. Okay, and let's say the secant of an angle is less than 0. Okay, well, let's first look at tangent. When is tangent greater than 0? Okay, well, tangent is greater than 0 up here, because it says tangent with a plus sign behind it, and tangent is greater than 0 down here. So if I just look at this first part, it says that I'm either in quadrant 1 or I'm in quadrant 3. So I'm going to put that underneath, 1 or 3. Now let's look at secant. Secant is less than 0. Well, we know that secant and cosine are reciprocal functions. So if secant of an angle is negative, that means the r over x is negative. We already said that the r is always going to be positive, so that means the x has to be negative, because if we're less than 0, we have to be a negative number. So the x has to be negative. Which two quadrants give us a negative x value? Well, quadrant 3 has negative x values, and quadrant 2 has negative x values. Quadrant 1 and quadrant 4 are both positive x values, so we cannot be over here or over here. So according to this second part, we're going to be in quadrant 2 or quadrant 3. For all of these problems, you will get two quadrants for each part they give you, and you can see that quadrant 3 lines up in both of these, and then the other 2 you can eliminate. So just by process of elimination for this problem, if tangent is greater than 0 and secant is greater than 0, then we must be in quadrant 3.